hanging out. I want to bring you and take you back in time a little bit to August 5th, 2021, the Summer Olympics in Tokyo. Of course, it's 21 because 20 was crazy, and they decided to delay the Olympics for a year. But we were walking August 5th, 2021, and it is the 4x100 meter relay. The United States is stacked going into this race. Trayvon Bromell is the number one ranked sprinter in the world at the time. Fred Kerley had won a silver medal 3 days prior in the individual 100-meter race. You had Ronnie Baker, who's one of the fastest runners to ever put on spikes. You had Craven Gillespie, who also is a burner. On paper, this race was a formality. Like, it was just basically a done deal. They had 4 of the fastest runners that had ever been assembled together. It was just a matter of shooting the gun, executing the race, and then they could go get all of the acclaim and the prize that they clearly deserved in light of how good they were going into the race. Sure enough, the gun goes off. Very first leg takes place, no problems. They go and they hand it off. They go to the second leg. And the second leg, you have Fred Kerley, who is burning into the exchange zone. And you notice right away that Ronnie Baker didn't leave early enough. And you see this picture take place. Their timing was totally off. What you saw is Ronnie Baker had to slow down for a second in order to go and get it, while Fred Kerley is running into him. All momentum was lost in the race, and they never were able to recover. Italy ends up winning gold. Great Britain ends up winning silver. Canada ends up winning bronze, and the United States got 6th place. On paper, it was a formality. But because of a failed exchange, they ended up getting 6th place. Here's what's crazy about it. Italy, not one of their runners had even qualified for the finals of the 100-meter individual runs. Meaning they individually had no reason to win that race. However, they mastered the exchange zone. In fact, most track coaches will spend 40 to 60% of the time when they're training for a 4x100 meter relay on the exchange zone, not on the actual running. What's wild is that the exchange zone only represents 5% of the overall race, yet it is the direct outcome of 60 to 70% of the results of that race. United City, I believe that we as a church are in the exchange zone right now. And we've got to make a decision. Are we going to be a church that hands the baton well, and as a result, lead to a gold medal race? Or are we as a church going to instead fumble the handoff and it lead to a disqualification or 6th place or something that isn't all what we have the potential to be? We're starting a sermon series that's called Blueprint. And what we're going to be looking at is over the next 5 weeks, we're going to be looking at how to build our lives and ultimately how to build our church on a foundation that can actually stand. We're going to look at what are the key principles that we should be building on that allows us to have something that we're going to be proud of that will withstand the test of time. And this morning on this encounter weekend, where it's been our student weekend, we're going to be focusing on the exchange zone. We're going to talk specifically about what it looks like for us to make the exchange. You know, the Bible has some really good gold medal exchanges. Let's just think of one. One of them would be Moses at the end of his time leading the people to the edge of the promised land. He then anoints Joshua as the guy. There's this commissioning moment that takes place. And then guess what? Joshua leads them further than Moses ever could have dreamed. It's perfect. But then you also see after Joshua, the book of Judges tells us that there arose a generation after them who did not know the things of the Lord. How does that happen? Because they failed the exchange. There's good exchanges and there's bad exchanges. In Psalm 78, the passage we're going to look at today, the writer is a man named Asaph. We don't know much about Asaph in the Bible, but we do know this. He's writing a psalm kind of angry. Why? Because he saw a failed exchange, and he doesn't want that to happen again. He instead is giving us some insight into how to make sure that we take the baton that we have, we pass it off well, and the next generation can run hard after us. Would you stand in the reading of God's word with me in Psalm chapter 78? I'm going to read the first 8 verses. It says, "Give ear, O my people, to my teaching. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings from of old, things that we have heard and known that our fathers have told us. We will not hide them from their children, but tell to the coming generation the glorious deeds of the Lord and his might and the wonders that he has done. He established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers to teach to their children, that the next generation might know them, the children yet unborn, and arise and tell them to their children, so that they should set their hope in God and not forget the works of God, but keep his commandments. And that they should not be like their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation whose heart was not steadfast, whose spirit was not faithful to God." You may be seated. Verse 7 and verse 8 show us 2 different groups of people. Those who are passing the baton and those who are receiving the baton. There's 2 different groups, and they have 2 different responsibilities, okay? I don't have a biblical basis for what I'm about to do, but I want to split us into 2 different groups of people, all right? The first group of people, if you are here today and you are 35 or older, would you raise your hand and would you leave it up for me? Raise your hands, 35 and older, okay? Leave it up high, like lock it all the way out. Stretch it a little bit because it probably hurts, okay? It hurts to hold it up. I know that you would love to be more engaged in worship, but honestly, it just hurts after a little bit, and so therefore you got to kind of go down a little bit. Let's just keep it up, all right? We're 35 and older. I'm a part of that crowd. It's gonna, yeah. Okay, you can put your hand down. That does feel kind of good, doesn't it? Just kind of get the joints moving a little bit. Things just hurt a little bit different than they used to. All right, okay, you're the 35 and up crowd, all right? Raise your hands if you are under 35. Would you raise your hands in this room, okay? First of all, did you see the energy by which they just put their hands up? Like it was just like shot up, okay? You guys are gonna be representative of the ones that are receiving the batons. You guys can go ahead and put your hands down, okay? Now, let me just go ahead and say a couple things up front, okay? I don't wanna cause conflict today, all right? So if some of you are already offended by this message because basically you got put in the old category and you feel like you're young, look, if you're over 35 and you feel like you're under 35, then you can be in that category, that's fine. But some of you are under 35, but you're an old soul, all right? You need to be talking about the old stuff, okay? I'm not worried about all of that. I just want us to put the 2 categories for the sake of conversation and give principles to both groups, okay? The first group I want to speak to is the ones that are over 35 and older, okay? I want you to write this down, page 5 on your notes. I want to give you 2 different principles for the over 35 crowd, 2 different principles for the under 35 crowd. The first principle to help us live this out to the over 35 crowd is this: prioritize the next generation. I want you to write that down. Prioritize the next generation. I have said this repeatedly from this stage, and I will continue to say it as long as God allows me to be the pastor of this church. I will give more priority, building, budget, dollars, programming, space to the next generation, and I'm not going to feel bad about it. I don't even feel guilty about it. I actually believe that if you want to reach all generations, the strategy by which you do it is by prioritizing the next generation. And many of you know, either because maybe you came from a church where this was the experience, or you grew up in a church where this was the experience, if you don't prioritize the next generation, you lose the next generation. And so what I'm calling us to do is to live out, I believe, the biblical mandate, which is to prioritize the next generation. Look at what Psalm chapter 78, verse 4 says again. Here's what it says. We will not hide them from their children, but tell to the coming generation the glorious deeds of the Lord and his might and the wonders that he has done. I got 3 ways that you can prioritize the next generation. I want you to write these down. First one is this: through your giving. Through your giving. 35 and up crowd, through your giving. Jason said it earlier, when you give to United City, you give through United City Church. When you give through United City Church, you know what you pay for? Yes, you have to pay for the lights. Yes, you have to pay for the air conditioning, because none of you would come if we had neither one of those things, okay? But let me tell you what you primarily pay for, okay? You pay for illusionists, and you pray for disco parties so that we can have kids have an incredible experience this past weekend, almost 500 folks up here on this campus, so that they can hear about Jesus. That's what you pay for. That's what you pay for. Make no mistake about it, it's not just a weekend, it's every week. We do this stuff every Wednesday. What you pay for is to making sure that we have a safe, sanitary area where your kids and your preschoolers can go so that you drop them off and they're already wanting to come back before the service has ever started. That's what you pay for. And so we ask you absolutely to pay for it. Well, some of you are like, well, I don't really have kids in that ministry anymore. And I would tell you, 1 Corinthians chapter 29, it says that David gave to the treasury to build the temple that he would never see. What does this show us? It's not about you investing in something that your kid's involved in. My kids are in lacrosse right now. My kids are in tennis. And I get hit up all the time. Man, can you give to this? Can you give to this? And we want to support the program, so we're going to give to that. Can I please tell you, when my kids are not in lacrosse and my kids are not in tennis, I ain't giving any more to it, all right? I'm just not. They can hit me up all they want to. I'm not. I'm doing it because my kids are in it. Can I tell you that this is a whole different ball game? This is something with eternal perspective that God is inviting us to be giver towards. So what does this look like? What this means is that you want to give towards scholarships for camps, scholarships for Encounter Weekend. We're about to baptize 13 students at our next service. 6 of those students came on a scholarship from somebody in this church. 6 of those students. We got a bunch of students that are going to be taking mission trips. They're going to be going on spring break, and they're going to be going to Egypt in this summer, and they're going to be going to Puerto Rico. Go to our staff and say, hey, is there anybody that still hasn't gotten their mission trip covered? And you be the one that writes the check to cover that trip. Like, we need to be a people who see it as our responsibility not to invest in our kids, but instead to invest in the next generation. Let me give you another one. Okay, number 2 is serving. It's serving. Folks, what this looks like is for you to go over to the student ministry and you serve as a life group leader. It's for those of you that serve in maybe as an adult on Sunday morning and you teach a life group. Praise God for that. But guess what? We had 115 leaders that served this past week at Encounter Weekend, which is amazing. Most we've ever had. Can I tell you, we could have also used about 100 more. So don't let that be a reason for you not to be a part of it. You instead figure out ways that you can come and serve and be there. But for some of you, you need to go serve in UC Kids. For some of you, you need to go serve in the number 1 fastest growing area of our church, which is our preschool ministry. Why? Because we want to make sure that these kids hear about the stories of our God. And what we're discovering is that we have one of the largest student ministries we've ever had. We have the largest number of kids that we've ever had, and we also have the largest amount of parents who don't follow into faith while their kids are in our building. Which means this: we have a responsibility. To whom much is given, much is required. So what I'm asking you to do is to figure out how God could have you to serve. You're like, well, I don't really know about if that's my thing. I'll do it. Some of my friends do it. And I would simply tell you this: look, God, we're either serious about this or we're not. I'm not trying to guilt you, but I am trying to motivate you to be a part of what God is doing in the next generation, because what you will quickly discover is that you're the one that's going to be blessed. Folks, if you were here this past weekend and you saw our students worshiping their Father in heaven, putting aside all the distractions that go along in their normal world that fills their hearts and their minds, and instead began to focus on their God, I'm telling you, that is a drug you will never get over. It was incredible. And I just want to encourage you, get in the game. Let me give you the third one, okay? Number 3, over 35 crowd. Pray. Praying. I am fully convinced with every bit of my being that I am standing here today in front of you as a direct result of the answered prayers of Virginia Gardner, my grandmother. No question about it. She had this chair that she sat in and she prayed for all of us, and I feel like I'm just kind of sitting on top of her prayers. There's a ton of students and a ton of kids in our church who don't have Virginia gardeners in their lives. But you can be that. You can be that for them. I've got a little wristband. Unfortunately, it didn't work out last week with the weather. Our plan was to pass all of these out to all of you. We did as much as we could this past week during the Wednesday night groups and things like that. I've been praying all week, though, for Danny Tollison. Danny's a 6th grader girl, and I've been praying for her. But here's the thing. I don't just want to pray for her this weekend. I want to pray for her all year. What I'm asking you to do is for you to say, hey, go to our team and say, hey, is there somebody that I could pray for? And you literally pray in such a way as though God wanted to do something massive in their lives. Like you're just not saying, hey, I got this thing. Do you think you might want it? But instead, you got that thing firmly out there saying, I cannot wait for you to grab this. And I'm going to pray in such a way where I believe God wants to do further in you than he's ever done in me, and he's done a lot in me. And that we pray with fervency. I'm telling you, church, what we just did over the last 21 days is the most important thing we'll do all year. But it doesn't mean that it has to stop. It instead allows us to be in a place where we can begin to pray and ask God to move in the hearts and the lives of some of these students who are meeting Jesus for the very first time. Or you have some students who've been around Jesus so long, but they're not as passionate as they need to be, who need to be inspired by the God who is moving in their friends' lives and in their lives and are undergirded by the prayers of his people. Folks, what I'm begging for you is to prioritize the next generation through your prayers. Let us win this battle on our knees. And let us have an opportunity to propel them towards things that they could never have imagined. Let me keep going. Look at what it says in verse 6 and 7. He says that the next generation might know them, the children yet unborn, and arise and tell them to their children, so that they should set their hope in God and not forget the works of God, but keep his commandments. Second thing I want you to write down, over 35 crowd, position them for success. Position them for success. The goal of the exchange isn't just knowledge, it's faith. We want the next generation to set their hope in God, to not forget his works, to treasure his commandments. This requires intentionality, but it also requires space. I don't know if you realize this, but we have pretty much renovated the majority of our property and building since Hurricane Harvey, except for the upstairs adult area, and then also what used to be called the student building. It's now called the United building. We've put a new front face on that United building. It looks fantastic. But if you were to go into that building today, it would look the exact same way that it looked whatever last time you went in there before, because it ain't changed since 2006. Just as an FYI, all of you have changed a little bit since 2006, okay? You don't wear the same clothes. You probably don't have the same haircut. You don't have the same style. It has not been updated at all. Let me show you a couple of pictures of what the building currently looks like, okay? This is just what we're using it for. We've been spending $30,000 to $40,000 every single year. My phrase is this: putting lipstick on the pig, okay? We've just been trying to dress it back up to what it was. We haven't improved anything at all because honestly, it would require so much of an investment that it has not felt worth it based upon the functionality of what the building currently sits and looks like. And what we've seen is that our youth have already outgrown it. They outgrew it a few years ago. Our young adults outgrew it last year. Our Espanol ministry outgrew it within a few months. And what we found is that it becomes a building that we're kind of using for a couple of classes, but it doesn't serve the functionality that we need, which is to primarily have our next gen ministry, our youth in particular, have a dedicated space that they can call their own. Let me show you what we're going to be launching and wanting to do, okay? This right here is going to be the renovation that we're looking to do into this building, okay? If this right here is the front entrance right here on the bottom, this is the new facade that is there on the building. When you leave here today, you'll have a chance to see it. If you've been in there before, you've got 2 bathrooms that are right here that are going to be moved to the corners, and we're going to have a lobby hangout space that'll be an inviting entry point, which we have none of that right now over in that building for any of the activities that we have going in there, primarily being youth. And then you're going to be able to go into a fully functioning worship center room that seats over 550 people in rows, also seats about 220 people in tables, because we have table groups that meet at this 10 o'clock hour for small groups for our students. We also, I don't know if you realize this, but probably host between 20 to 25 banquets every single year for all of Humble ISD, some New Caney ISD, all around. And these banquets allow us to get students and families on our campus. It's been a huge strategy of outreach for us, and we're going to be able to do that through this facility that is right here. We also know that this building is going to be used for women's Bible studies. This building is going to be used for young adults. This building is going to be able to be used for Espanol. This building is going to be used for new ministries that we haven't even thought of yet. It's going to be a highly multi-purpose youth space that we're going to be able to do many great things. Take a look at some of these pictures of what we're looking at doing. You see here's what the lobby would look like. It's kind of an inviting atmosphere that would allow folks to be able to hang out prior to walking into the worship center. Take a look at this next one. It shows you some pictures of what the worship center would look like. We're going to be doing audio, visual, and lighting at the same quality that we have in this room, which will allow us to leverage the work that's already been done and created in those other spaces for overflow, for big weekends, for things like that. But also going to allow us to be able to continually train up folks in this specific area, which we believe is going to be where the world is going in every way, and we're going to have the spaces to be able to do that. But I want you to notice there's a little door that is that goes towards the outside that heads back to our current kids building. It's right there, okay, right through there. And I want to show you what our plans are for the outside, okay? Take a look at this. What we're wanting to do is to add 2 pickleball courts and a volleyball court in the back. So a back volleyball court, 2 pickleball courts that are on the sides. I can already see some of you over 35 thinking, you know, that kind of hurt holding my hand up that long, but I can play some mean pickleball. Like, I can do that. And look, you can play some pickleball too. It will allow you to do that, all right? But the primary goal is to create an environment where we can have next-gen space where they can come and gather and be able to hear about Jesus. And so this right here is a project. There's another aerial view of it. You can kind of see what that would look like. This project costs $4.5 million to be able to do. $4.5 million. It would take us about 5 months to complete. Our ideal scenario is to start this project the day after Easter. And it would take 5 months to complete, and we wouldn't be able to use it at all, which, by the way, is a very big deal because we use that building all the time for a lot of different things. We've already thought through and think what that's going to look like. We have already raised half of that number, $2.25 million, which is incredible. But we need to close the gap. So what I'm asking you to do is, 1, pray for us about this. But 2, I'm asking you, and a part of this generosity journey that we're going on, to consider making this a part of what you give towards so that we can build this and start it. We're going to do it whenever we get the money. But we also know we want to ask people to invest in something that we know is going to be of significant eternal value. Now, please hear me. This isn't like a vision moment where I'm telling you, man, God's got this great things. This is not a vision project. This is a catch-up project. We don't even have to pray about it. We just need to do it, okay? Because the reality is, while we've been fixing everything else, we needed to be fixing that, and we just had to prioritize different things. Now we got to catch up, and now we got to get this done. And so I want to encourage you, please consider what would God have you do to be a part of a project like this, because here's the thing. What we want to do is literally build the scaffolding where next generation can receive the baton and start to run. That's the goal. We got to prioritize them, and we've got to make sure that we also do what we need to do in order to position them for success. Let's transition. Let's talk about the under 35 crowd. Under 35, raise your hands again real quick for me so I see who I'm talking to. Perfect, awesome. Under 35 crowd, I'm going to give you 2 things as well. I want to make sure you know something, though, that's very important about that. This is what Ronnie Baker did not do, which is what caused that failed handoff to go, okay? He waited too long before he started running. In the exchange zone, there's something called the fly zone. The fly zone means this: before you receive the baton, you're supposed to already start running. Too many times, the biggest problem with folks that are under 35 is they're just waiting for their turn. Don't wait for your turn. What I want to tell you is start running and the baton will be put in your hand. Here's the things I want to tell you. Go back to Psalm 78, verse 1. Look at what it tells us. Give ear, O my people, to my teaching. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. Write this down for you folks that are under 35. Here's the first principle I want to give to you. Grab the baton with humility. Grab the baton with humility. One of the biggest things that I know I struggled with whenever I was under 35, and what I have times seen as well, is that I already know everything by the time that next generation gets to me. I already got it all figured out. I don't need your help. I don't need you to hand me anything. I'll do it on my own. And I'm telling you, there's been multiple examples. 2 Kings chapter 12 gives an example of how Elijah took the mantle from Elijah and ran much further. But you also see other examples where basically Joshua didn't do what he needed to do. And what happened? It began to say that those generations after him who didn't know the Lord. So what I'm asking you to do is to grab it with humility, a posture that says this: I got a lot I need to learn, but I'm also going to run. Let me give you 3 things that you need to do. Number 1 is serve. What does this mean? Students, don't serve one day, serve right now. Go on a mission trip. Go serve in kids area. Go through Growth Track and figure out ways that you can serve right now. This means young adults, don't wait until all the conditions are perfect and you feel like you're ready before you run. No, run with your hand out and serve right this moment. What you will begin to discover is, yes, you don't have it all figured out, but guess what? Neither did we. We may act like it now, but we promise you, we had no idea what we were doing back whenever we were grabbing the baton. And so instead, what you need to do is just start running with your hand out, receive that baton, and you start serving. Let me give you the second thing, which is to share. Marquise Cox did an incredible job leading our Encounter Weekend. He's a pastor out of the San Antonio area, and he shared this very great outline that I want to share with you this morning that kind of challenges you, that are specifically those of you, all of us, but really those that are under 35 to consider. And it's this idea of basically a model for how you build relationships with somebody to share the gospel with them. And he said, first of all, you just kind of talk about surface stuff. Hey, man, it's really cold outside. And it's freezing. Can you believe it? Yeah, Houston, Texas, it's cold. You're just kind of doing the whole generic thing. Then all of a sudden you kind of move towards something similar. Hey, man, that jacket, I got that same jacket. That's pretty cool. Where'd you get that jacket? Or whatever your similarity is, like you're talking to somebody and you're making that kind of connection. And then all of a sudden, and sometimes it happens right away. Sometimes it takes some time, but something shifts and all of a sudden it gets serious. Maybe there's like, man, how you doing? Oh, man, it was a really rough weekend. Honestly, I'm struggling with some stuff. Or, man, it was kind of tough. I actually went to a funeral. My grandparents, they passed away. My grandmother passed away, and I had to go to their funeral. Like, all of a sudden, you kind of just feel that moment where things just got serious. And at that moment, you don't just want to say, man, I'm really sorry to hear that. That stinks. And then move on. That's when you want to move to spiritual. Hey, man, I'm really sorry to hear that. Can I pray for you about that? I've never met one person ever, and it's not because I'm a preacher, they don't know I'm a preacher, who's turned down me offering to pray for them. Never once. Even people who don't believe, they'll let you pray for them. Folks, what I want to encourage you that are under 35, the statistics show this off the charts, that the thing that is working the most when it comes to evangelism is bold evangelism. It's not casual evangelism. You have platforms that those of us that are over 35 never even dreamed of. You've got opportunities to either scroll your life away or to share your life with others. So leverage the platforms that God is allowing you to have and use those things for the cause of Christ and the gospel. And you take what we never dreamed was possible and you instead grab it and you begin to use it as you move forward. Let me give you the last one. Number 3 is partner. Partner. I want you to ask this question, those of you that are here. God, what do you want to do in me? Regularly and consistently ask God, what do you want to do in me? And what do you want to do through me? Look, we're doing a lot to focus on you. There's no question about it. We've unapologetically do so. But don't just be passive recipients. You be active grabbers of what we're doing, and then you figure out ways that you can partner and say, God, what do you want to do through me now? Like, God, how do you want to use me in my life? And you may say, well, I'm not ready yet. Please hear me. Timothy wasn't ready. Joshua wasn't ready. Elijah wasn't ready. But you know what God told all of them? It's time to go. It's not time to wait till you're ready. It's time to start running and allow God to use your step of obedience to be able to do great things in and through you for him. Look at what it says in verse 7. So that they should set their hope in God and not forget the works of God, but keep his commandments. Second word of advice to the under 35 crowd, write this down. Run with it boldly. Run with it boldly. Man, I think a lot about this with my own kids. I want to make sure they know, I got another one that's about to graduate, another one about to head to college, and it feels like, man, have I told them all the things I need to tell them? Have I gone over the stuff that I'm supposed to go? And you kind of keep doing that, but really the goal is not necessarily knowledge, the goal is wisdom. What I want them to do is to know not all the things that I know. What I want them to know is the God who gives me this wisdom in the first place. And my goal is that my kids and the youth of this church would already be running, and as I'm running up to them, I'm handing them my ceiling, which has just become their floor. I want them to do more than I could have ever dreamed. I want them to have more impact than I even knew that I could possibly ever have. I don't want them just to exist. I want them to live on mission and have a vision that not, the hard parts of life are going to knock that down, but instead they would have a vision at this age where they actually believe in a God who can allow those things to take place. And so therefore, what I want to do is tell them, run. You run as fast as you can. I want to set you up in such a way to where I'm going to hand this off to you, but you're going to take this mantle and you're going to do things that I never even thought possible. Yes, you're going to have challenges that I've never faced. Yes, you're going to face obstacles that I've never faced. But praise God, you're going to have opportunities I've never dreamed of. Because you're coming out of a church who made it a priority to invest in the next generation, and we're all here to tell you, run. You run. You run. Folks, can I show you an example of what it looks like, one, the power of a simple invitation, but also what it looks like to see a student go from death to life, get it, and run. Take a look.
Hi, I'm Courtney Daniel. I'm a freshman at the University of Tennessee. And I came to United City back in November of 2023 when Kaylee Smith invited me to Girl World. I was suffering from depression, anxiety, and honestly the biggest thing is I didn't know who I was. I didn't have an identity, and every single thing that I thought brought my life value was the things that I could accomplish. In that darkness, I was just covered and I didn't see a way out. Until one day, there was a light in the darkness, and that light was Jesus. When I went to Girl World, we were actually all, worship was going on, and as I kind of stood there, I looked around and I realized, I said, something's different about these people. I was like, I don't know what's different, but I'm not the same as these people, and I want to know what's going on with them. So from that day, it kind of just lit a fire, and I realized that Jesus was much different than I had originally thought. In November of last year, I decided I wanted to be all in. I said, I want Christ to transform my life, and I want to accept him. And I realized that slowly but surely, my life was being changed and transformed before my very eyes. And in February of this year, February 2025, I decided to be baptized. Also, what I realized is it isn't just about me. I said there was so much power here and there's so much love here. And I said I couldn't just keep it to myself. And I ended up having, I believe, 100 people attend my baptism. And at least in the room with the baptism, there was still some more in the congregation. And it was amazing. There were people that I never even thought would come inside to see me be baptized. And I was looking out and I was saying, wow. These people, they came for me, but they're getting Jesus. They're getting the love and the passion and the forgiveness that comes in Christ Jesus, and it was absolutely beautiful. And I think many of them, even today, they still attend United City, and that was just so beautiful.
They came for me, but they're getting Jesus. That's what we want. Courtney bought 2 Bibles. She calls them the loaded Bibles. She highlighted a bunch of verses that she wanted her family members who don't know Jesus to be able to read while she went off to college. Has gotten word back that they're starting to read some of those verses and starting to become interested in the God that she serves. She's a stud athlete at the University of Tennessee. And what she's doing is she's actively sharing her faith there on the campus of University of Tennessee. What started here, she ran with much further than we could have ever imagined. And what's amazing to think about now is that because she took the handoff without even realizing it, she's handing it back off to her over 35 parents, saying, hey, you need this. You need to have this too. For those of us that are over 35, I don't want to overstate this, but I do believe it's true. What we decide to do in the next 5 to 10 years will determine what this church looks like in the next 50. That's what we're standing on. We're standing on the shoulders of people long before us who sacrificially gave not only of their money, but of their time and of their prayers. And those shoulders that we stand on are broad. We got to make a decision. Is it going to end with us, or are we going to do the same? So what I want to encourage you to do is to consider, what is God needing you to do? What step is he asking you to take? Is it to serve somewhere? Is it to give? Is it to pray? Can I suggest it's probably all of them? For that under 35 crowd that's here, we're going to be packed out here next service with all of our folks from Encounter Weekend. It's time to run. And you need to know this. Your church believes in you. Your church is proud of you. Your church supports you. Your church wants to see you do things in and through you that only God could write. And we hand you that baton and say, run, run.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We can't wait to see you next week for any of our services at 8:30, 10, 11:30, or Espanol at 1 o'clock.